Hi everyone, this is Gracie from the Dig team and welcome back to the Dig It data tutorial series. This is video 9 and we're going to be looking at how to add already published content to your map in ArcGIS Online. So if you're following along in the worksheet that is linked in the description, you're going to want to go to data source 4 about the ESRI Living Atlas. Or you can go to the Living Atlas link that I have provided also in the description of the video. And so the ESRI Living Atlas is an awesome tool that you can use on ArcGIS Online because it is made by ESRI, kind of the parent company of ArcGIS Online. And so it has a collection of GIS, remote sensing data from all over the world, and you can explore kind of all of the pre-published content that is made by them if you look around on this page. But if you scroll to the bottom, you can see that they make maps, tools, and layers. So they have pre-published functioning maps and apps that you can use, or if you want to take the raw content and incorporate it into your project, you can also add it as a layer. And so I'm going to click the layers button here, and it opens up this search page where you can use all of these different filters to figure out what data you need and what is available. And so all of these layers are published on ArcGIS Online. So for example, when I click on this Sentinel-2 layer, it's going to open it up in this content page, which is exactly the type of page that we made when we uploaded our city weather station data. And so you can read the description of the layer, all of the properties, who owns it, and then all of these ESRI published ones usually have something about what can you do with this. So it'll be really helpful for incorporating it into your own project. And so to view these layers, you can click open them in the map viewer, or you can search for them from a map that you've already made, which I will show you how to do in a moment. Navigating back to the Living Atlas page, you can see that you can filter for ESRI only content or authoritative only content. I would definitely recommend starting with these because that ensures that the layers that you get from ArcGIS Online are, peer-reviewed and published and QA/QC'd. So published by ESRI is always a good sign, or published by any government agency. That's also a really good sign. And so I'm going to go now to ESRI's profile on ArcGIS Online. So if you search for ESRI environment in ArcGIS Online, it will take you to this profile. And you can look at the bio. This is the official publishing account for ESRI's Living Atlas environment team. And so this has some cool data sets that I'm going to show you for an example that kind of tie into our temperature related data that we've been working with throughout this tutorial. So if we click on the bioclimate projections annual mean temperature, we can see that it is a tiled image relayer, meaning it's a raster data with output from the CMIP6 climate models. And we can scroll down to see the time extent where it shows us how far into the future these projections go. And then there's more and more information about the specifications of the model that they used to create it. But what we want to do is add this to our map with the weather stations on it. And so we can open it here directly, or if I navigate back to my map that I made, remember this one with our labeled weather stations, I can always add content directly from the add panel here. So if I click add, the first thing that will pop up is always my content. If I want to look in the Living Atlas, I click the drop-down menu and click Living Atlas. And then it will just start showing me all of the hundreds of files and features in the Living Atlas. So I want to find that bioclimate one, so I'm going to search bioclimate. And here it is, the first one that pops up, bioclimate projections 01 annual mean temperature. And so to add that to my map, I'm just going to click this little add button right next to it. And this will probably take a second to load because it's a big file, but it will populate in our map. Great, so now we can exit the Add Layers section, and if we want to ever rearrange the layers on our map, right now we can see that now this projection is covering the location of our stations. So if I want to change that, you kind of click on these 6 dots, and I can drag this above it, so now we can see the location of our stations on this new projected temperature map. Okay, and so let's open up our legend so that we can see what these colors mean in our projections. So here we're looking at the period from 2030 to 2050, and we can see that the projected annual mean temperature corresponds to the colors in the color ramp here, with things warmer being closer to the yellow and red, cooler temperatures being with the cooler colors. So we can also zoom out, take a look at the whole world here, because this is in fact a global data set. And now once we are happy with the scope of the map, one thing that's really cool about this layer is that we can play a little animation showing how the temperatures will change. And so we can do that by clicking the play button down here. And now we can see as we cycle through how temperatures might change depending on how far we are into the future. And so if I pause it at the end here, this is what the projected temperatures look like from 2090 to 2110. And so this is a great example of how to add imagery data to your project, and also how to use data that might have a temporal aspect on ArcGIS Online, where you can use the slider to see how things will change. Next, I'm going to show you how to add polygon data, which is kind of like any boundaries that are drawn by lines and dots. And so to do that, I'm going to go back to my layers. First, I'm going to turn my bioclimate layer off because we want to be able to see the imagery underneath. And now I'm going to zoom back in to the US, taking a look at the stations. And so I'm going to click Add again. I want to go back to my Living Atlas because that is always a reputable source to get your data from, and start thinking about what data might be relevant to this project on temperature. And so I remember seeing an urban heat layer when I was looking at the ESRI gallery. Here I see it's called the US Urban Heat Island Mapping Campaign. So I can click that, explore a little more about how this was calculated, what type of data it is, and this is a feature layer from ESRI, so it's not a tile layer, it's not imagery, and we can look at the preview and see that this is probably some type of polygon shapefile data that we can add to our map. So I'm going to go back to my map now, click the Add button in the Layers tab, navigate again to the Living Atlas. Then I'm going to search Urban Heat Island Mapping. And here I can see it published by ESRI. So that's the layer that I want. I'm going to click Add. And it's hard to see because we have our little dots, but now if we take a look at each city, we can zoom in, wait for this to load a little bit, and then we can see how this is divided. So each polygon is a census tract or a neighborhood. And when you click on one, you can see that the citywide average was 89, but for this neighborhood, it was 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And then there's more information here about some demographics and kind of built environment. So there's only 50% tree cover in this area, impervious surfaces, so things that are paved over, stuff like that, 6%. And then you can look at the rates of poverty, minority, and ages. And so looking at the symbology, we can also pull our legend back up. The red and blue corresponds to afternoon temperature anomalies. So in the areas that are red, there is an afternoon temperature anomaly that is positive, and so it is hotter in this neighborhood than it is in other areas of Seattle in the afternoon. And if something is blue, that means that there is a negative temperature anomaly, and this is a cooler neighborhood relative to all of Seattle. And so if we want to ever look back at a layer in its entirety, we can go back to our Layers tab, click the three dots, and click Zoom to our city weather stations, and then it takes us back out. And from there, we can zoom back in and explore all of the different urban heat mapping campaigns for each of these cities. And so that was a quick overview of how to add pre-published data from ArcGIS Online to one of your maps. Remember, the previous video showed you how to upload your own content, which is always an option too, so you can combine a lot of different types of data from different sources into one map. And in the next video, I'm going to show you how to export or publish your map from ArcGIS Online.